It's Friday, July 18th, 2025. Welcome to episode 163 of the Alameda Postcast, an audio service of the Alameda Post. I'm your host, Scott Peeler. In this edition of the Postcast, City Council approves funding for the World Cup. The City Attorney's Office receives national recognition. National politics affecting the Alameda Food Bank. Foz welcomes their new CEO. A local dog adoption goes viral. The latest real estate sales, and another weekend full of great events. These stories and more on this episode of the Alameda Postcast. Our top story. As previewed in last week's episode, Tuesday's City Council meeting addressed the question of sharing funds from the transient occupancy tax with the Oakland Roots and Oakland Soul soccer teams. Why? With the World Cup headed to these shores in a year, soccer's governing body, FIFA, is in need of training and base facilities for international teams. With 6 matches scheduled for Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, the East Bay is an ideal location, especially with the proximity to the Oakland airport. As fans tend to follow their teams even during training, there is a potential for increased revenues thanks to hotel stays, restaurant attendance, and more. While the Roots and Soul do train at the former Raiders HQ on Bay Farm, it is estimated that $700,000 in upgrades are needed to bring the facility up to World Cup standards. The Roots are seeking financial support from nearby jurisdictions, including Alameda, Oakland, Berkeley, Alameda County, and the state of California, citing the potential financial benefit to the entire region. Economic Development Division Manager Dwayne Dahlman recommended a transient occupancy tax sharing agreement of up to $150,000 funded by the projected increase in TOT revenue during the June to July of 2026 period. The city expects occupancy and room rates to rise significantly during the World Cup compared to June of this year's baseline levels of 77% hotel occupancy and 58% short-term rental occupancy. So, the $150,000 would essentially be paid off by increased tourism that would not be happening without the presence of the World Cup. Public comment was unanimously in favor of the move, with Christopher Seawald, the community member and Roots investor, reminding the council of the positive impact of international sporting events in the past, saying, quote, "When the America's Cup came to Alameda, the shock and awe of these people being in our community was just tremendous," end quote. Members of the Downtown Alameda Business Association and the Alameda Chamber were similarly supportive, Tony Desog reiterating the impact of the 2013 America's Cup, noting that some visitors to that prestigious sailing event wound up becoming Alameda residents. In the end, the motion was passed unanimously. Story and pictures in Karen Jensen's article at alamendapost.com/news. One of the very first stories we covered here on the Postcast was the saga of Barnhill Marina, all the way back in episode 2 in May of 2022. More than 3 years later, we're still talking about it, but this time for a great reason. The Alameda City Attorney's Office has been awarded the 2025 American Bar Association's Hudson Award, a prestigious national recognition presented annually to one government or public sector law office for outstanding performance and extraordinary service. The ABA commended the City Attorney's Office for acting, quote, with urgency and resolve to protect 50 families living on floating homes in the Barnhill Marina from imminent housing displacement, end quote. In early 2021, the city explained a new landlord sought to increase rents at Barnhill Marina by as much as 178%, which would have put many tenants at risk of becoming unhoused. About half of the tenants were over the age of 65, and many were low-income or fixed-income households and without the means to absorb such a rent increase. As the ABA commendation noted, the city attorney's office, quote, moved quickly to draft an urgency ordinance that would extend local rent control protections to maritime residential tenancies. With just 2 days to spare before a deadline for residents to pay the rent increases, the Alameda City Council unanimously adopted the urgency ordinance, end quote. City Attorney Yiben Shen received the award, saying, quote, "I am thrilled and deeply honored that the Alameda City Attorney's Office is being recognized as a nationwide leader in developing innovative legal solutions for some of our community's greatest challenges," end quote. Full story at alamendapost.com/news. For weeks in the national news, the so-called Big Beautiful Bill dominated the headlines. While the events played out in Washington, the fallout from results of its passage are already being felt here in Alameda. Among the many cuts in the recent legislation, a dramatic reduction in federal grants and food aid provided to aid organizations. The Alameda Food Bank has already seen a federal grant rescinded and has felt the effects of cuts to the USDA's Emergency Food Assistance Program. AFB Executive Director Teal Harden noted that the food bank is already seeing a reduction in the amount of food received from those programs. Additionally, benefits to users are being cut. Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Programs, or SNAP, commonly known as food stamps, or CalFresh here in California, expecting a 20% cut. So a decrease in the amount of food provided and a potential increase in the number of people requiring assistance. This is a problematic combination as demand for food aid has yet to return to pre-pandemic levels. The food bank is searching for funding that does not rely on federal or state dollars. It is also turning to Alameda residents, with Director Hardin noting, quote, "We are asking the Alameda community to help us fill the void," end quote. Jean Chen spent time with Director Hardin discussing the situation. Find the full story at alamedapost.com/news. Jean's been busy covering the folks who do good work here in Alameda. In June, Friends of the Alameda Animal Shelter welcomed their new CEO, Adrian Abayan. Jean caught up with Adrian as he took the reins at FOZ. For Abayan, this is something of a homecoming, growing up in Alameda and attending the College of Alameda. His background includes nonprofit leadership at Cause Reed Group, SOS Meals on Wheels, and the Job and Housing Coalition. While these are not animal organizations, he notes that FOZ is really a people organization. Quote, "One of the things that really attracted me to FOZ is that they're not just thinking about the life cycle of an animal. They're thinking about the life cycle and how that's commingled and partnered with people," end quote. Abayan arrives as FOZ is preparing to open the Animal Medical Service and Training Campus on Bay Farm Island in the fall. The facility is already attracting interest from the larger area, with a team from UC Davis visiting and looking at guidance on how to replicate the services offered. Get to know the new top dog at FOZ and find out how you can help them in their mission in Jean Chen's article at alamedapost.com/alameda-life. While we're on the subject of dogs, Alameda found itself in the center of the latest viral internet moment recently. It started when Julian Reif adopted Rufus, a half Chihuahua, half rat terrier from the San Francisco SPCA back in 2016. Then in May of this year, at the age of 15, Rufus suddenly died from a gallbladder issue. As you can imagine, the Alameda family was devastated. A day or two after Rufus died, Reif's daughter Maya saw a photo of an older dog that looked almost exactly like Rufus on the Muttville Senior Dog Adoption Center's Instagram page and showed it to her mom. 4 days later, a visit to Muttville resulted in the family adopting the dog, which they named Ziggy. The resemblance to Rufus was so uncanny they decided to run a DNA test. The results were literally an exact match. Turns out Ziggy is the father of Rufus. Quite the story. Get the details and pictures at alamedapost.com/alameda-life. The first half of July saw 16 residences sold in Alameda, 13 on the main island, 3 on Bay Farm. Prices ranged from $600,000 to $1,950,000. 14 above listing price, 1 at and 1 below. Average time from listing to offer continues to creep up, now at almost 4 weeks. Full details in Liz Rush's article at alamedapost.com/real-estate. As always, a lot going on here in Alameda. Our own Kelly Rogers Flint took in the Tomorrow Youth repertory production of Sondheim's dark musical Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street. Not an easy show for an ensemble of young actors, but Kelly came away impressed. Final weekend is this weekend at the Academy of Alameda at 401 Pacific Avenue, Friday and Saturday at 7, Sunday at 2. The Sunday matinee, Pay What You Will at the door in an effort to make the show accessible to as many as possible. Full details, photos, and a ticket link in Kelly's article at alamedapost.com/arts. Please note, even though a young cast is presenting this show, it is not recommended for young children due to subject matter. Our latest history walking tour is upon us. Learn about Neptune Beach, the Coney Island of the West, this Saturday or Sunday. Dennis Evanosky tells the tale of how the site dates back to 1877, when it was known as the Newport Swimming Baths. You'll find background articles, a video lecture, and a ticket link at alamedapost.com/tours. That's just one of the events mentioned in Amanda Laird's All Around Alameda column. Other things going on, the Beer City Alameda returns this Saturday with a half marathon, 10K and a 5K run, a Beat the Beast beer mile, and the Beermazing Race Brewery Tour. Alameda Walks is back with a tour discussing Alameda Hospital and the history of Old South Shore on Saturday. Saturday also brings Radio Day by the Bay at the California Historical Radio Society, Saturday between 8 and 3 at 2152 Central Avenue. The event is free to attend, and I will see you there. More events at 94501.info. Congratulations to Alameda's Brian Wu. The Seattle Mariners starter made the most of his first ever All-Star appearance. Brian pitched a perfect third inning, retiring 3 batters on 8 pitches with 1 strikeout. At the All-Star break, Brian sits at 8-4 with a 2.75 ERA and a sparkling 1.8 ERA at home. Here's to a strong second half for Brian. Remember, find us on all the social media outlets, and you can find the Postcast wherever you get your podcasts, or simply tell your smart device to play the Alameda Postcast podcast. I'm Scott Peeler, back next Friday with episode 164 of the Alameda Postcast.